Namaskar everyone and welcome to the Geeta Satsang for today. So let us start with the Prarthana. By the Guru's grace and the will of Shri Krishna, we have all assembled for this Geeta Satsang. May we have their guidance to be able to learn and adopt the things which will help us to grow spiritually. Let us chant the Shlokas. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Krishnaya Vasudevaya Haraye Paramatmane Pranatah Kleshanashaya Govindaya Namo Namaha Namostu Te Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Ullara Vindayata Patra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha Ramanujadaya Patram Jnana Vairagyabhushanam Srimad-Venkatanathāryam Vande Vedanta-Deshikam Yo Nityamachyutapadambujayukma Vyamohatastaditarani Trinaya Mene Asmadguror Bhagavatosya Dayaika Sindhoho Ramanujasya Charanam Sharanam Prapadye. So with prayers at the lotus feet of the Acharyas, let us start our satsang for today. So in the previous satsang, we had taken up to shloka number 69. And today we will look at the 70th shloka. So Krishna is explaining to Arjuna about how one must control the desires, how the senses lead us astray, and so on. So in the course of that, he gives one more example so that Arjuna will understand the point. So in the 70th shloka, Lord is saying, Apuryamānamachala pratishtham samudramāpah pravishanti yadvat Tatvat kamayam pravishanti sarve sashanti mapnoti na kamakami. So Krishna explains that we have the ocean or the sea, which is one water body. And then we have the rivers, the nadis, which constantly flow and empty their water into the ocean, into the sea. Now, although the rivers are constantly merging with the ocean and pouring their water into it, the ocean does not get disturbed by that. So, just as the ocean remains undisturbed by the incessant flow of waters from the rivers merging into it, likewise, in a similar manner, the sage who is unmoved despite the flow of desirable objects all around him, such a sage attains peace, and not the person who strives to satisfy desires. So how can one attain peace? All the time, all around us, there are so many impulses which are there. We are seeing objects around us. Our senses are in constant touch with these objects. So despite all that, how can one attain peace? Do you restrain yourself from fulfilling those desires, or you do everything you can to satisfy the desires? Which path is going to take us to become peaceful? Which path is going to make us to progress on the journey towards moksha? That is what Krishna is explaining. So here he gives the example of the rivers. So we have all noticed that rivers flow in a particular direction. Now there are many rivers in our country, and we know so many of them are there all over. In the north, we have Ganga, Yamuna, we have the invisible Saraswati Nadi, right? Then as you come down, you have Narmada, you have Godavari. Then further down, we have Tungabhadra, we have Kaveri. Like this, of course, there are many more rivers also. We can't name all of them here. So all these rivers, now most of these rivers, they flow in the direction from west to east and they empty into the Bay of Bengal. There are a few rivers, however, which flow in the opposite direction and they do empty into the Arabian Sea. Now, whichever be the direction of flow, the point is that the rivers are all flowing and taking their water into the sea. Yet, have we ever seen a condition where the sea gets flooded over because too much water came from the rivers? That never happens. How much ever water from the river comes into the sea maintains its level the same. That means the sea or the ocean is not affected by the pouring in of the river water, isn't it? Similarly, now why this example is being given? To explain to us who is a sage, who is the muni, who is someone who is a yogi. What is that person's condition? That person is like the ocean or the sea. That person is not moved, he is unmoved by desires. Now, just like the river water comes and falls into the sea, the desires all flow and they come. But this person is not affected by those desires. So, such a person, only this kind of a person who is not affected by the desires, such a person only will get peace. The person who strives to fulfill the desires always. That means what? The person who is unmoved by desire is somebody who is going to have restraint. He is not going to get affected by those desires. He is not going to take any action to fulfill those desires. Such a person attains peace. On the other hand, you have the person who is constantly running after each and every desire that he develops. And he is trying his maximum to fulfill all those desires. Such a person definitely will not attain peace. Because we all know that whenever you have one desire and you try to fulfill that desire, one thing is it is never possible to completely fulfill all our desires. Second thing is, in the process of fulfilling one desire, we develop 10 more desires, isn't it? So there is never going to be an end to our desires. So if we are going to constantly run behind fulfilling each and every one of our desires, there is no question of us attaining peace at any point of time. So here, what is the key factor? Restraint and not indulgence. We have spoken about this in many previous shlokas also, the examples the acharyas have given of how if there is a fire which is burning, right? And you want to put out the fire. If I pour ghee or I pour some other fuel into that fire, will it get extinguished? Definitely not. It is going to blaze stronger. But if I do something which cuts off the oxygen supply, if I try to curb that fire, then I will make sure that the fire gets extinguished. Similarly, here, when our desires are like a fire which is burning, if we go on giving things to fulfill those desires, if we keep indulging our senses, there is no question of us ever getting peace. But if we restrain ourselves, if we control our mind, if we try to not pay attention to the desires, if we don't run behind fulfilling the desires, then that is the key factor which will lead us ahead on the spiritual path. Now, here the acharyas give the example of one state which is very superior, which was the state of Prahlada. Now, we know that in Prahlada's story, we have seen how Hiranyakashipu, his own father, tried to do all kinds of things to, kill him, to get rid of him. So, whatever was done to him, Prahlada connected all that with the Lord. Like, for example, when he was given poison to drink. Now, that poison is having that bluish black color. The minute Prahlada saw that poison in the cup, he didn't think of it as poison. He said, oh, this is like the color of my Lord, his form. This is like Krishna's color. And he happily drank that. When he was thrown into the fire, what did he say? This fire, the radiance of this fire, it is like the tejas of the Lord. Oh, this is my Lord itself. And he happily stepped into the fire. When the snakes were set upon him, what did he see? He didn't look at it as a snake. He said, oh, this is Vasuki, this is Adishesha. These are all my Lord's servants. And he was happy about that. Right. Now, are we at the level of Prahlada? Definitely not. It is a very superior state. So we cannot attain that state. Definitely we cannot unless we put in many years and we have Lord's grace. Right. So directly we cannot ever get to this stage. So for us, if I look at poison, I will say it is poison only. If I look at fire, I will think it is fire and it is going to burn me only. If I look at a snake, I will be scared only, thinking it is a snake, it will come and bite me. Right? So I cannot see the poison as Lord. I cannot see the fire as Lord. I cannot see the snake as Lord. But what I can try to do is, that I can stop feeling affected by that particular thing. When I look at poison, yes, it is poison, but I'm not affected by it. When I look at a snake, yes, it is a snake, but I am not scared of it. When I look at fire, yes, it is fire. I see it only as fire, but I am not worried about what damage it will do to me. So if we can at least cultivate this minimum status, now we are saying this minimum status because that is how the acharyas have explained it. But I think it is very obvious that even this is a very high status for somebody in our position, isn't it? So we must at least try to do this. And what is this doing this? It is trying to stay unaffected, trying to stay unmoved by what our senses are telling us. Now here it is very important, the acharyas say that we must remember one very important factor. When something is happening to me, I must stay unmoved by it. I must not be affected by it. I must not get emotional about it. I must not worry about it. All this is when things are happening to me. But if I find that somebody else is in trouble, then that is not the time to stay unmoved. I am passing by and somebody on the road meets with an accident. Yes, there is nothing to be done in this situation. What is the point of breaking my head over it? Let me just stay by myself. That is not the attitude which the acharyas say we should have. When others are in trouble, we should be moved to rush to help them. In fact, that is what is called as the true Vaishnava. That is the true sign of a Vaishnava. What? That he is moved to help others in trouble. When we say this shloka in the beginning of the satsang, where we are paying obeisance to Swami Ramanuja, we are saying, Asmat Guror Bhagavatosya Dayaika Sindho. So he is considered as Daya Sindhu. He is an ocean of Daya, Swami Ramanuja. And he was definitely very particular about this fact that we must always rush to help others who are in need. That is the sign of a true Vaishnava. I think many of us, we are familiar with that bhajan which Mahatma Gandhi used to sing, or he popularized it, right? Where it tells about who is a Vaishnava. Vaishnava janato tene kahiye peed parai jane re. Somebody who feels the pida, somebody who feels the trouble of other persons. Such a person is a true Vaishnava. He is the true Bhakta of Vishnu. And why is this told? Because every time we have seen in every story that the minute somebody is in trouble and calls out to the Lord, he rushes there to help them, isn't it? So whether it is Gajendra the elephant, right? Whether it is Draupadi who was in trouble, whether it was Ajamila who called out just thinking of his son, in all cases, the Lord makes sure that he protects those who are calling out to him. So when that is the sign of the Lord does not say, okay, this person has done so many papas, let him unbow so that, let him go through all that. I'm not having anything to do with him. No, even that person calls out with such intense bhakti, then the Lord rushes there to help him, isn't it? So we must remain unaffected when something is happening to us, but we must be very much moved by the troubles of other people. So in this shloka, however, the focus is on how we must restrain our senses and not get affected by whatever our senses are seeing, listening, and so on. So the sage who is unmoved, despite, now the sense objects are there all around us. And in spite of that, this person is able to not get affected. So such a person will get moksha. Next, we come to the 71st shloka. So here Krishna lays out the exact steps, what we have to follow to become such a kind of person, to get Shanti. The person who is a sage, how we can get Shanti. So what he says in the 71st shloka, Vihaya kamanyas sarvan pumams charati nisprihaha nirmamo nirahankaraha sashanti madigachati. Such a person who gives up all material desires, the person who lives free from a sense of greed and proprietorship and egoism, this person attains perfect peace. So what are the steps we have to follow? Now in the previous 70th shloka, we learned that the sage is the one who is unaffected by the senses. In the previous satsang, when we took the 69th shloka, we talked about what is day for the yogi, what is night for the yogi, what is day for the ordinary human being, what is night for the ordinary human being. You remember? So in that shloka, we had said that knowledge of God is what is day for the yogi. And that same knowledge of God, the ordinary person is not having. So it is night for him, right? Then knowledge of worldly pleasures is what the ordinary person has. So that is day for him. But the yogi has no knowledge of worldly pleasures. So that is night for him. So there we described one particular kind of mental state of the yogi. Here in the 70th previous shloka, we have seen that this mental state of who is a yogi, again, who is a sage, how the person is full of Shanti. Now, how you reach that mental state is what is explained in this shloka, the 71st shloka. So the person who has given up all desires for pleasure from senses, the person who has no sense of ownership, and the person who has no ahankara, such a person will get Shanti and they will get moksha and they will get ananda. So they will get moksha ananda and they will get Shanti. So these are the three key words here. Nisprihaha, nirmamaha, and nirahankaraha. So what is the meaning of these words? When we say nirahankaraha, nir means without, ahankara. So we know that ahankara, we use this word very commonly in daily language also, isn't it? If somebody is acting very smart or somebody is very proud and egoistic, we say they are having a lot of aham. They are having a lot of ahankara, right? So in the worldly sense, when we use this word, we mean that somebody is being egoistic. Somebody is having a superior attitude, or somebody thinks of themselves as being better than the others, right? So that is what we call as ahankara. But in the spiritual realm, what is the meaning of this ahankara? It is the having the misconcept that I am the sharira, the wrong identification with the sharira, and not realizing that one is actually the atma and not the sharira. That wrong idea is called ahankara. So what do you mean by saying nirahankara? Somebody who has no ahankara, what is kind of a person is he? It is a person who has realized that he is actually the atma. He is not the sharira. So somebody who has overcome this wrong idea of identity is a person who is said to have nirahankara. Such a person is without ahankara. They have given up the wrong idea of oneself as the body, and they have realized that they are actually the atma. That is the state of nirahankaratva. Then nirmamaha. Mamaha means mine. This object belongs to me. These things are mine. Nirmamaha, not having that sense of ownership. Giving up the idea that this belongs to me. This is mine. I am the owner of this. And so on. So when we give up this idea of ownership, then slowly our attachment to all the material objects will start reducing. Now what happens? Okay, let us say I have a phone and there is somebody who wants to use my phone for some time. Now what happens? Oh, it's my phone. How can I give it to them? Right? Or people do this for so many things. They don't want to part with objects which belong to them. Why? Because they think this is mine and I am the owner of it and I'm attached to it. So I don't want to give it to somebody else, or I don't want to give up that thing. So the minute we have that kind of an attachment, are we going to go forward on the spiritual path? Definitely no. Our attachment will pull us more and more into the worldly pleasures, right? So nirmamaha is very important. Giving up the sense of ownership is important for spiritual practice. Then nisprihaha, one who is not affected by the sense pleasures. The one who is not, coming in touch with these sense pleasures. The one who reduces his enjoyment of these pleasures. Such a person will attain moksha and shanti. So these are the three things that we have to take care of. We must learn that we are the atma and we are not the sharira. We must learn that all objects in this world are not mine. They are actually the Lord's. I am only a caretaker of those. And we must learn not to attach our senses to the objects which are going to give us the sense pleasures. So if somebody can reach this state stepwise, if they can be nispraha, they can be nirmamaha, and they can be nirhankara, then such a person will get Atmadarshana. That is guaranteed by the Lord. So to tell about these things, they sound very theoretical. Maybe if we see the example of one of our acharyas itself, we will realize how to live our life. So Swami Vedanta Deshikar. So he used to he used to have his livelihood. Like he and his wife, they were living by following all the principles of whatever Dharma has told, whatever Shastras have told for a Brahmana. So he would not seek to earn money in any way. He would every day go out for what is called as uncha vritti. And by begging alms from the grihasthas, he would get some amount of rice that would be cooked, offered to the Lord, and then consumed by them. So like this, one day what happened is, some people, either you can say that those people were trying to test Vedanta Deshikar, or you can say there were some people who genuinely felt that, oh, he is in such poverty, he is a great scholar, but he has nothing for himself. Let us try to help him. So with either of these two motives, once when he went for Uncha Vritti and he collected the alms, when he brought it home and he showed it to his wife, she said, what is this, Swami? There are some shining, glittering objects in this. So Swami Vedanta Deshikar looked at that rice and then he saw that people had put gold coins. As I said, either to help him or to test him. So Swami was so particular that he picked up a stick, a twig, and he didn't even want to touch those gold coins with his hands. He pushed those gold coins. He told his wife, these are worms. They will spoil the food. They are not fit to be cooked. They are not fit to be used by us. So let us throw them all away. And he just he pushed away those coins with the help of the stick. And then with whatever rice was there, his wife cooked. He was not bothered about what happened to those gold coins. That was the level of vairagya of Swami Vedanta Deshikar. Now, there is an interesting incident that happened. He was the classmate when they were children and doing abhyasa. At that time, Swami Vedanta Deshikar and Vidyaranya Tirtha, who was the guru in the Vijayanagara Samrajya, Vidyaranya Tirtha and Vedanta Deshikar, they were friends, they were classmates. So after they grew up, Vidyaranya Tirtha finished all his education, Gurukulavasa, everything, and then he went to the court of the king of Vijayanagara and he was there guiding the king. Swami Vedanta Deshikar continued to live his austere life and like this. Now once Vidyaranya Tirtha saw that, he came to know that Deshikar is in such a poor condition. He's not in good, he doesn't have enough for his needs also. He is very poor and like that. So he was feeling bad that, oh, he's such a great scholar. How can I see him suffering like that, what he thought was suffering? So he sent word to Swami Vedanta Deshikar saying that, you come here, come to the court of the king of Vijayanagara. I will make sure that you get a good position and the king will reward you. When he got that letter from his childhood friend, Swami Vedanta Deshikar composed a set of 5 verses. And that is called as the Vairagya Panchakam, which was composed by Swami Deshikar. So in that, in every shloka, he explains certain things. So in the first shlokas, he says, the pride of those kings who rule bits of this earth grows like wildfire. And there are people who praise them and think they are blessed. But what is my thought? We think that service to God, who is merciful, will give us all our wants. For did not sage Kuchela meet the Lord with a fistful of pounded rice and become wealthy? So he's saying here that there are some kings who are ruling over small parts of this earth. What about the Lord, right? The Lord is the ruler of the entire universe. Now these kings with small bit of land, they are so proud. And the people, there are other people who praise these kings and think that by praising the kings, that king will give something to me and I will live my life with that. But the bigger king, the Rajadi Raja who is there, who is that? That is the Lord. And that Lord is ever merciful. And whatever we need, He will give all that to us. Just like when Kuchela is Sudama. When Sudama went seeking the Lord's darshan, then without him asking for one single thing, the Lord gave him all that was required, isn't it? So this is the first shloka. In the second shloka, he says, even learned scholars, now he's pointing to his own classmate and friend, Vidyaranya. He's saying, even learned scholars pray the king for filling their stomach. Is not the spilled grain after a harvest sufficient for their needs? So after somebody has done the harvesting, whatever leftover grain has spilled on the floor, can I not take that and live my life with only that much? Is not a palm full of water sufficient to quench one's thirst? Do I need costly liquids? Do I need milk and other things? Just a palm full of water, is it not enough to quench my thirst? If there is some cloth which has fallen by on the roadside, is that not enough to cover myself? Is that not enough to act as a loincloth? When all this is easily available to me, why should I go and pray to a king and praise the king just to fill my stomach? So if he's not going to praise the king, then whom should he praise? He stays in the next shloka. Even if the fire in my stomach burns intensely and equals the raging fire in the middle of the ocean, I will not ask even for a speck of dust from the king. For my speech, having the fragrance of jasmine flowers, which open in the evening, are reserved for our great Lord. So he says, no matter how much, fire in the stomach means what? Even if one is intensely hungry, even if one is in intense need of something, but I don't want to ask for anything from the king, because that is like a speck of dust. What will the king be able to give me? And for whom I have reserved my speech has the fragrance of jasmine flowers. So much is the power of my words. So much is the beauty in my words. For whom I have kept that reserved only to speak of my Lord. I am not going to use my words to praise any ordinary mortal who is just the king of some tiny bit of land here. That is what he says. In the fourth shloka, he says, he's talking now about what wealth he is having. When I have the decorative black colored wealth, who sat in front of Arjuna in the battlefield? Who is this? Krishna. Who sat in front of Arjuna in the battlefield on the chariot? It was Krishna. And he's saying he is the decorative black colored wealth. We know the color of Krishna, isn't it? He's called Shama Sundara. So I have that wealth. Why should I sit in the periphery of the gate of the kings and beg them for perishable wealth with hands held in salutation? What I will get by begging from this king? I will get wealth. And what is that wealth? Is it permanent? No, it is perishable. It will last not very long. It will go away some point of time. So why should I salute this king sitting outside his gate and beg him for some wealth when I have the biggest wealth which is there? What is that? That Shama Sundara is there with me. So why should I need wealth from this king? That is a question that he is asking. Wealth got by serving the rich till one's body falls to the ground is that wealth which will quell one's anger but is sorrow causing. One's hunger, but is sorrow causing. So what he is saying here, if I serve the rich king and I get the wealth, that wealth may fill my hunger, it may fill my stomach, but it is wealth which will ultimately cause me sorrow. It will lead to dukkha. On the other hand, that wealth which made Arjuna great, that wealth which made it possible to lift Govardhana, and that which fills one's mind with joy is the real good wealth which one should possess. So he's telling his friend that what kind of wealth do I want? I don't want this wealth which I will get from the Raja. It may quell my hunger. It may put an end to my hunger. But ultimately, it will only cause dukkha to me. What wealth do I want? What was the wealth that made Arjuna great? It was the wealth of Krishna Sambandha. What was the wealth which made it possible to lift Govardhana for the king? For Krishna. So that wealth, that bhakti, that ability, that is what I want. And the wealth which fills the mind with joy, that is really the good wealth which one should possess. And then finally, he concludes with this very famous shloka. He explains that what is the wealth that I am having. Now he has talked so much. No, he's saying, what is the use of this wealth? What is the use of begging the king? And all that. So finally, he is giving the final parting shot that what is it, that wealth which I am having? Because if he says all the other things to Vidyaranya asks him, okay, fine, you are talking all this so much. What is it that you are having? You have nothing. So then he says, Nasti pitrarjitam kinchit, namaya kinchit arjitam, asti me hasti shailagre, vastu paita maham dhanam. I don't have pitrarjitam. I don't have any wealth which I have inherited from my fathers and forefathers. Nor I have earned any wealth on my own. But what do I have? The grandfather Brahma has given to me as wealth my Lord. Who is this Lord? The Lord who lives on top of the Hasti mountain. This Hasti Shailagre, the Lord who is on that mountain, on Hastigiri. Who is that Lord? It is the Lord Vardaraja of Kanchipuram. And that Lord came there on the request of Brahma. So Vedanta Deshikar is explaining that I don't have wealth of my own. I don't have wealth which I have inherited from my forefathers. But my grandfather Brahma has given me this Lord. And this Lord standing on the Hastigiri, this Kanchi Vardaraja, he is my wealth. When I have this wealth, what other wealth do I need? Why will I come and fall at the feet of your king, a worldly mortal king, when I have the Raja with me? When I have the entire universal Lord with me? When I have the king of the entire universe with me? Why do I need your ordinary king? That is the bhava with which Swami Vedanta Deshikar lived his life. So we are definitely not at the level of Swami Vedanta Deshikar, right? But we must take steps if we want to progress on the spiritual path, if we want to develop vairagya, if we want to reduce our sense pleasures, if we want to reduce our wants, we have to make efforts. First thing is we need to reduce our wants. Now our life has become such that anything we see, we feel we want that. There is no distinction at all for us between need and want. A need is something which is absolutely necessary, and a want is something that I want just for pleasure, for my mind. So we must let us have the needs fulfilled. But wants, we don't really require them. We must not run behind trying to get all that our mind desires. So we must make efforts to reduce our wants. Then, secondly, we must eliminate the desires. Stop feeding our desires. Don't struggle to fulfill the desires, because there is never going to be an end. The more you try to fulfill your desires, the more they will keep on multiplying. So suppress those desires, eliminate those desires, and then you will find it easier to go ahead. Cultivate a sense of contentment with what we have. So there is so much that we have. Let us try and focus our mind on what we have already. Let us feel gratitude for all that God has given us right now. And with that sense of contentment, let us live our life. Let us not constantly keep running behind this, that, and I want more and more, like that. Then that nirmamatvam that we should have, that realize that nothing is actually yours. Realize that everything actually belongs to God. And we are only like caretakers. We have been entrusted with that particular object or that guna or that ability. It is all belonging to God. It is by God's grace only that we have everything. And let us use that in the best way possible. And wherever there is a question of our pride, we must strive to crush our pride instead of nurturing our pride. People will praise us for certain things. We must not feel proud that, oh, people are praising us. We must realize it is the Lord who is enabling me to do this. There are times when people will say bad about us. We must not feel that, oh, they are saying bad things about us. We must realize that they are here to point out our flaws. It is good that they said bad about me. And so I will correct myself. Here there is one small story I will like to narrate. It suddenly came to my mind. Swami Parashara Bhattar, who was one of the acharyas in the lineage after Swami Ramanujacharya. At one point of time, he was a great acharya and he was a great vidwan and had lot of bhakti to Lord Ranganatha also. So once when he was standing in the temple Sanidhya, there were a group of people who didn't like him. That always happens, isn't it? So those people stood there and right in front of the Lord, they started defaming Parashara Bhattar. They started criticizing him. They started saying lot of things and saying he is like this, he is like that, he has done this, he has done that, all of which were false. But those people had some kind of an ego and they wanted to put this Parashara Bhattar down. So they started criticizing him for something which was not at all his problem, which was not his fault. Immediately what Parashara Bhattar did, he went and he stood in front of them and he bowed his hands. He said, "Thank you so much." They were shocked. What is this happening? Because normally when you criticize somebody, people get angry. Why is he coming to us and saying thank you and being so humble? So Swami Parashara Bhattar said that actually the Lord has told that there are two things that every Bhagavata should do. There are two things every Prapanna should do. What are those two things? The first thing that they have to do is they should sing the praises of the Lord at all times. And second thing that they have to do is they have to all the time keep criticizing themselves and realizing how, uh, you know, poor they are in their bhakti and how they have done so many wrongs. They should keep mentioning their flaws. So these are two things that a prapanna should do: praise the Lord and keep singing your own mistakes. You should keep reciting your mistakes. Now he said, I have always been doing the first one. I have been praising the Lord. But all these days, I have not done that second thing. I have not been criticizing myself. Thank you very much. You have opened my eyes. By pointing out all these things today, you have taught me how I should be doing self criticism, how I should be realizing all my mistakes and begging forgiveness from the Lord. So, thank you so much. That is the bhava of a truly great scholar and bhakta, that they don't feel hurt when people point out something in them, even if it is wrong. They try to crush their own pride instead of nurturing that pride. So we must also make efforts to do all these things. So we've talked about a lot of things today. We have come to the 71st shloka. So there is just one more shloka in the second chapter. And we will take that in the next satsang. And along with that, we will also see the Phalashruti. What is the phala? What is the benefit of having done patana of the second chapter? So let us do that in the next satsang. We are running out of time today. I have tried to cover too many things, I think. So anyway, we will meet again next Thursday, hopefully. Until then, namaskar and thank you. So let us offer Kritagnyata now. Let us offer Kritagnyata, gratitude at the lotus feet of Sri Krishna and Guru for inspiring us to start and join this satsang. And let us pray for their blessings and grace to always be on us. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining in. We'll meet again next week. If you have any questions, you can please send them on WhatsApp. Namaskar. Thank you, Tulsiram. Thank you, Zarnaji. Thank you, Chudamani Mami. We'll catch up again next week. Namaste.